opportunity to answer. Your answers will be limited to 2 minutes, with an opportunity for rebuttal if needed. Finally, each candidate will be given 2 minutes for a closing statement. To keep our forum timely, our timekeeper, Mr. Mark Dunham, will signal you when you have 30 seconds remaining by simply raising the flag. When time's up, he will wave the flag. When time's up, time's up. Okay, we'll get to more questions this way. At this time, I would like to introduce incumbent City Councilwoman Cortney Niland and Mr. Josh Dagda. Cortney, do you want to start?
Well, good morning. First of all, I want to take an opportunity to thank the West El Paso Republican Women for hosting this forum today. It's really exciting to be here. I was here 4 years ago, and I'm excited to be here today. I'll tell you, 4 years ago, you placed your trust in me. And I vowed to fight for you and improve our community, improve our neighborhoods, and our local economy. I'm humbled to be elected as your public servant. And I know I earned your trust by the work and deeds I do every single day. I vowed to do what I could to improve El Paso. I wanted to be able to say at the end of the 4 years that I've been serving you and the great citizens of El Paso and the constituents of District 8 that we're leaving District 8 better than where I found it. And I'll tell you, we are on the rise. It is so exciting to see the national news that El Paso is making right now. Just within the last 4 years, for the 4-year running, we are the safest city in America. We are the best place to raise a family, according to Movato Real Estate. We are ranked one of the top emerging growths in downtown. Just in this last year, you've seen $53 million worth of new investment in our downtown core. And why is that important to you? Because what we have to focus on is shifting the burden of taxes from the residents and the homeowners to the commercial tax base. We've got it wrong here in El Paso. You, the homeowner, have the bulk of the burden. It's 40%, it's 60%, 40%. It has to shift. The only way we can continue to do that is by growing our commercial tax base, and we're doing it. We were also ranked #2 in international trade with our foreign trade zone. And we were just recently, within this last month, ranked one of the best performing cities in the nation. In fact, #3. So I'm excited about where El Paso is going right now. I'm excited about the opportunity to serve you. I will tell you, I work very hard to engage all 27 neighborhood associations that I represent. We have weekly meetings, we have weekly social media updates, and we're consistently on the ground engaging with you, trying to find out how we can better serve you. The last 4 years has been one of the great privileges of my life. I can't wait to hopefully serve you all again for the next 4 years, and I know we can do it as long as I have your support.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we could please silence your phones. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Josh Dagda, and I'm running for City Representative of District 8. I am the candidate of transparency and accountability, and my opponent is not. She has allowed for the city to spend hundreds and thousands of your taxpayer money to keep records secret, to fight against efforts of transparency and accountability that our private citizens have been demanding. I want to reduce public spending and lower the taxation. Our homeowners are being taxed excessively. 70 cents for every $100. That's how much we're taxing our homeowners. Our elderly homeowners shouldn't have to choose whether to put food on the table or having to lose their home. It's simply unacceptable. I want to market El Paso as a city that has skilled labor, that has entrepreneurial people, so we can bring in high quality jobs. As well, I want quality of life for the citizens of El Paso. But when this quality of life projects happen to keep raising in price. We're just putting the burden on the taxpayer, and we're losing our quality of life altogether. I was born and raised in the borderlands, and I graduated from Faith Christian Academy in high school, and I continued on to my higher education at UTEP. And I graduated with Bachelor's in Business Administration as well, with a double major in Marketing and Computer Information Systems. 6 years ago, I started my own business in this field. I specialize in the flow of information and communication within organizations, so both administrators and stockholders can keep these organizations accountable. I want to bring in these services to the city of El Paso so our taxpayers know exactly how their tax dollars are being spent. We should not allow for representatives like my opponent to continue on taxing the people based on city council's mistakes. Thank you.
All right, now we'll begin our questions. Please keep in mind that these questions have been submitted as a result of recent action by City Council, of which Ms. Niland is currently a member, but they are expected to be of equal value to both candidates. The first question, Mr. Dagda, you will start since Ms. Niland had the opening. Why are you running for City Council? And each candidate, again, will have 2 minutes to answer the question, and again, I will take turns. Mr. Dagda?
The reason why I'm running for city council is to lower your taxes and to reduce public spending, the excessive public spending. We shouldn't put the burden on the homeowner. I'm running for city council because I want to bring in my knowledge of communication and transparency to the people, because that's something we currently lack. I'm running because I want to bring quality of life to your citizens without having to break their pockets, without having to empty their wallets. I want a better city. I want a better place in which my community can thrive and live in. Thank you.
With my experience, it's easy to say these things, but it's another to do. And you can see by my proven track record, I'm on the ground doing. Just in a little information packet that I gave you today, talking about where District 8 is today, I reduced electric rates 4 years ago in my first 6 months of office, when I saw that the electric utility was taking advantage of you, the ratepayer. I knew rates were too high. Sure, they came and told me, oh, you can't take on the electric company, you just got here in office. And I said, oh, you bet I can, and I will. That's my job. That's what I'm here to do. We are the overseer of the electric company and the ratepayers, and we took them to task. And it was my financial experience that knew how to do that. When they were screaming from Wall Street that they were reaping a return on investment of 50%, I knew that's not right. The max they should have been earning was 10%. So I fought for you, and we got a reduction in rate of $15 million, unprecedented and historic, and I led those efforts. In addition to that, it's easy to say that you want to bring jobs here, but my background as an economist will tell you the only way you're going to grow jobs here, 80% of jobs come from the local economy. The local economy. We have to be on the ground, putting incentives forward, helping those small businesses grow, because that's where you're going to get jobs. The people that are already vested here, the people that are already paying, and the people that we are investing in today, I'll keep doing it for the next 4 years.
All right, next question, Ms. Niland gets to answer this first. Members of City Council have recently considered requiring 2 signatures for an item to be put on the city agenda. Please state why you think this is or not a good policy. Ms. Niland?
Thank you. 4 years ago, my predecessor had basically zeroed out the economic development department. As an economist, I was heartbroken. We said to ourselves, what are we going to do to grow this economy? I went to the city manager at the time and the mayor, and I said, we have to hire the best economist in the nation to come in here and do an overhaul. And we did it. And if you've not read it yet, I suggest you do. It's called the Ed Fazer Report. He's a lead economist in the nation. He came in and he basically said, you guys got it wrong. You're all in the car with different maps trying to get to the same location, and it's never going to work. And in fact, you city council, you're viewed by the private sector as being entirely too bureaucratic. Nobody wants to work with you. Nobody does. They just don't. And we knew it to be true. So one of the things we looked for when we hired this new city manager was someone that was going to be strategic, someone that was going to be passionate about better serving the business community, the small business community, operations, efficiencies, and effectiveness. And one of the suggestions that he suggested we do was hire a chief strategist, come in and sit down and have a strategy session. Out of that strategy session came our strategic plan. If you haven't seen it, I really encourage that you look at it. But we all unanimously participated in that. And this is one of the ideas that was generated from that strategic plan in an effort to work together better, foster a team spirit. It's much like other cities are already doing with their best practices. The state of Austin's doing this, San Antonio, Houston. You've seen other communities do this. The state legislation does it, and so does the federal government. This is just a better way to try and serve you, our constituents. And so, does it mean that we can't put an item on the agenda in our legislative review work sessions? No, it absolutely doesn't. And we'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Niland, for not answering the question. And first of all, I want to say that that specific thing happens to be a very undemocratic move of City Council, allowing two people not to vote so somebody else won't put something on the agenda. It's a very, very undemocratic thing to do. Every single representative should have the right to put something forth onto the agenda. If a citizen, if a resident of El Paso comes to a representative to ask them to put something on the agenda, the representative should have the ability to do so. But in this situation, we would only allow for a majority to keep ruling City Council. Our democracy, our republic, was set in a way in which the minority can be protected as well.
Thank you. Mr. Dagda, you get to answer this question first. In reference to El Paso's firefighters, there are three issues the voters will have the opportunity to consider on May 9th as we vote for City Council. The increase in health insurance premiums and how much firefighters should contribute, wages, and drug testing. Those are the three items. The biggest issue on the ballot is how much firefighters will have to pay for health insurance. Currently, a majority of firefighters are on the premium plan and pay $344 a month. Next year, the city is proposing firefighters shell out $600 a month, which is equal to an extra $256 per month, or an extra $3,000 per year. If voters vote in favor of firefighters, property taxes for a $120,000 home will increase approximately $12.50 per month for the next 4 years. What is your stance in reference to the firefighters' contract with the city overall?
Thank you for your question. Our firefighters happen to be a very, very important part of the services that the city provides. We need to be able to help them out and meet their requirements as far as insurance goes. They put their lives on the lines for us whenever we happen to be in an emergency. They happen to get out early, up in the morning, to go and meet the emergencies that the city has. However, I don't believe that we should pass on that tax burden to the homeowner. I believe that there is a way to be able to reduce spending and to cut wasteful spending, and we can still meet their what they want. Thank you.
This is where experience really pays truth is, we have an unfunded mandate by the state of Texas that mandates that we offer a pension fund to our city employees, our fire and police employees. Unfortunately, we can't afford that. If you look to corporate America, most pension funds are gone because they bankrupted companies. That's why they're gone. Now, with the new rules of the state legislation, that unfunded liability, we now have to carry on our books. That's going to impact the tax rate exponentially. That's going to impact our ability to issue debt and the cost of that debt exponentially. Our firefighters and our police servicemen are an unbelievable asset in this community. And we're so grateful for the way that they serve us. There's nothing better. But they're also 50% of the $750 million budget that operates this city. The taxes that you pay, only 25 cents on $25 of that 100 goes for us to operate that $750 million budget. For us, we have a democratic process. When we open collective bargaining, we sit down and we try to work things out. And we've tried to do that for 9 months now. And what we've said to the firefighters and police and our city employees is healthcare costs are on the rise. We can't afford to continue to provide this rich benefit for you. So at the end of the day, we asked police, listen, we're going to have to put this cost more onto you. They said they understood. So did the city employees. The firefighters said no. And in addition, they said they didn't want us to do drug testing. Well, I will tell you what, I'm here to protect you. When that firefighter gets there, he better not be on drugs. And in addition to that, I have to watch your budget. And if this goes and this passes, it'll be 4 cents additional on the tax roll. And that's what people aren't talking about.
Thank you, candidates. Ms. Niland, you get the first crack at this question. What qualification most sets you apart from your opponent?
My experience. I have a proven track record and I have proven results. I have a financial background that has benefited me in every decision I make. I have a passion to serve. So many times people ask me, why do you do what you do? Certainly not the pay. And it's certainly not so that I can spend time away from my lovely family. But it's to improve the quality of life in this community. Days like yesterday was my favorite. We took a blighted piece of property in one of the most underserved communities that the city owned and turned it into a fantastic community garden for children to learn and grow and experience. And I will tell you, getting my hands dirty and planting those herbs and vegetables yesterday with those kids from Bell Elementary, those are the days that I live for. But at the same time, I love serving you. I have the ability to do it. I have the education, I have the experience, I have the background. I don't ever pretend to know all the answers. I don't have them, and I'll be the first one to admit it. But I can promise you this, I can bring the people to the table to sit down and work it out. We're going to go into another rate case later this summer. Do you want me or do you want Mr. Dagda? There's a clear difference between the two of us, and I know you'll make the right choice.
Well, I believe that my opponent should leave her economic degree right on the side, because apparently she has allowed for several budgets to increase in size for 40% and 60%. Financial advisor, well, what I have to say about that is that we're having an economic crisis right now. We're not in an economic boom. There's a lot of the homeowners that are losing their home right now as we speak. And that should stop. And it's mostly because we're putting the tax burden and all these fantastic projects that you've been espousing. Now, what I bring to the table is that I want to market El Paso as a city that provides skilled people, that has entrepreneurial people, that can fit the positions of these companies that can come here to El Paso. Our city representatives have done nothing but only market El Paso as a city of cheap labor.
Yes.
We're not a city of cheap labor. We're a city of intelligent and industrial people. Also, within my expertise in communications and the flow of information, I want for people to know how we're spending their tax dollars. And I don't want to spend them exuberantly. I want for people to know exactly how we're doing it and why we're doing it. I don't want to take decisions on my own volition. I want to take the decisions or the wants and needs that the public wants. More than anything, she took a hard decision, she says, replacing a ballpark, which is a fantastic stadium, I will say that. However, she didn't hear the public first.
Yeah.
Thank you, candidates. Next question goes to Mr. Dagda first. Transparency in city government seems to be a hot topic amongst various city council candidates throughout the city. The city of El Paso has spent thousands of taxpayer dollars on private lawyers in the open records case now pending before the Texas Supreme Court. Legislation is now pending in the state legislature requiring the release of public records, including those on private devices. In your case, Ms. Niland, would you agree to sign a sworn statement and submit to a deposition, thereby ending the lawsuit and saving taxpayers if you are not hiding public records? And Mr. Dagda, if elected, would you release any correspondence that pertains to city business from your personal device? Mr. Dagda, you can answer first.
Sadly enough, my opponent has fought ardently against efforts of transparency and accountability. She has sued the Texas Attorney General, at the time, Greg Abbott, now your governor. Now your governor. She sued the state of Texas and spent hundreds of thousands of your taxpayer money on your behalf. What does that show? And not only that, private citizens have been demanding and have been clamoring for accountability and for transparency. The city of El Paso has been plagued with corruption for far too long. We are tired of that. And I want to say that if I, as a public servant, comes forward and if they want to scrutinize me, my personal life is yours to have. I will put myself out in the public. I will sign an affidavit stating that I will release the emails. Ms. Niland, what do you have to hide?
I have nothing to hide. I absolutely have nothing to hide, which is why I did sign the affidavit and why I did release my personal emails. So to me, this is just further rhetoric, political rhetoric. You, Mr. Dagda, have an obligation to the people you say you want to serve, and it's easy for you to say all this corruption is concurring, and I've seen you do it in your literature. But if it's so true, where's the proof, Mr. Dagda? Why haven't you been down to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, filing that proof and showing all this corruption? You have that obligation. I haven't seen you do it. I've just seen you talk about it. Well, it's something different. If it was true, it would be all over the front cover of any newspaper that's here today. So you know it's not true. It's just an easy way for you to try to get a rise out of the people you want to serve. And so I'm sorry, sir, I am transparent. And my public life and the fact that I've chosen this public life demonstrates on a daily basis my willingness to share my public life with you. And so, yes, when the city attorney came forward and said, sign this affidavit that says you have released all your emails, I most certainly did it. When they asked me to release my personal emails, I most certainly did it. And I will tell you that I have done that. And so for you to make those accusations, sir, I don't know why you're here. You should be down filing the report showing this documentation of all this corruption. Because there's been corruption at the county and there's been corruption at the school district. But sir, there's been no corruption at the city. And I would like to also retort in regards to the baseball stadium. The baseball stadium is not being funded by the general fund. It's 75% of that is being funded by the hotel occupancy tax, of which you passed. And so yes, did we have to make a decision? And did you elect me to make those hard decisions? Yes. But that's why I was at the table making sure we were going to find creative ways to finance that project. And that project alone has now garnered an additional $53 million in growth in our downtown. That's growing the tax base. That additional monies that are coming in offset the cost that we made. But this is the difference between my financial background and your political rhetoric.
Thank you, candidates. Ms. Niland, you get to answer this first. Candidates routinely promise prospective voters they will cut taxes when running for office. Please give us a specific example of how you would or have reduced costs. Thank you.
My first budget session, when we were combing through the budget, and having people complain in front of us because they were saying, why are our parks brown? Why are my kids who are 11 years old having to play a baseball game at 8:30? We demand better. We want better. But we had kept taxes low during the economic recession. We cut our belts. When you think taxes, remember only $25 of that 100 goes to the city. The individuals that keep exponentially raising your taxes are the county and the school district and UMC, not the city. Okay? Last year we passed the effective rate, which is the same rate that it was the year before. So you can sit here and say that I've raised all these taxes, but I haven't. And you know I haven't, or maybe you don't know because you don't know the budget. But at the end of the day, what I can tell you is this. I saw $500,000 that was being spent, okay? And I said to myself, why are we paying the Public Utility Board $500,000? And they said, oh, because they service our fire hydrants. I said, no, our firefighters do. Oh, well, we've always paid it. Well, I don't care. We own our water utility. Our firefighters already do that job. And I will tell you what, we're not going to pay it anymore. So guess what? That $500,000 that we've been paying for 20 years, we're not paying anymore. So I'm on the ground trying to find a way to cut services and better provide you the services that you deserve, and at the same time keep that tax rate low. And if you look at the tax rate, we have had incremental tax raise over these last 4 years that I've been in office. So you can say it all day long, but you can't prove it.
2 cents here, 3 cents there, 25 cents there. Later on, they're going to be taking your real money. In the last 4 years, your property taxes have increased exponentially, little by little. And you know what? They don't care. Your city representatives don't care about that because it's your money after all. A baseball stadium, un estadio pagado por otros.
Woo!
A stadium paid for others, paid for you. They say it's going to be the hot taxes. However, we've seen in the last year, we had to pay $1 million in order to just keep it open out of our own money. That's not out of the hot taxes. And guess what? In the further years that come along, we're going to end up losing more. The way that I will reduce taxation is reducing the excessive public spending on all these frivolous projects that we have. I want to increase the quality of life, but increasing the quality of life doesn't mean that I have to take money out of your wallet. The money in the pocket of the people is far better spent than money in the pocket of the government.
Ooh, that's right.
Thank you. The next question is a two-part question. What do you consider to be your greatest strength, and what has been your greatest accomplishment in your career? Mr. Dagda?
Well, my greatest strength is that I happen to be a very personal person, very friendly, and overall, I listen to people. I don't just talk, I listen to people, and I absorb information. My greatest achievement overall is that it's been an honor having to serve my community overall. It's been an honor that I was able to open up a business here in El Paso, in downtown specifically, while still going to college. And I was able to do it on my own, and with the support of my family and the support of my friends all along. Now, however, I want to continue on striving, and I want to continue growing as a person so I can serve the public better. I want to represent. I don't want to be a ruler. I want to represent the public equally, regardless of where you come from or who you are.
I think my greatest strength is my passion. I love what I do, and I love to be able to be in this position, to be able to serve you. That's what I do on a daily basis. This is public service, and I love it. I'm afforded the ability to be able to do it for you, and I love it. I love every inch of this district. I love being in the South Side. I love being in Chamizal. I love being in Chihuahua. I love being in Segunda. I love being in Sunset Heights. I love the fact that when we drive through those neighborhoods, our Mijo Park is better than when I found it by a couple $100,000. So is Abeytia Park, and one of the most underserved neighborhoods in this entire city and probably nation. But is Abeytia Park better today? You bet it is, by $300,000, and I did that. John R. Carr Park in Sunset Heights, it's better today than when you found it. And you know what? These have been through federal grants, not your taxes. And you know how I've been able to do it? Because I get to the table and I fight for my district. I am passionate about it. I love it. And I will continue to serve you with the utmost integrity and respect because I'm passionate about public service. And so yes, we've hit some great milestones. And I think the historic $15 million plus an additional $4 million reduction in legal fees in your electric rates, pretty great. I think the jobs that we've announced, over 3,500 new jobs since I took office, pretty great. I think the fact that unemployment is down to 5.7% from 7.9 since I took office are pretty great. And I love all those accolades. But at the end of the day, what I really love is serving you.
Thank you. Next question. Do you notice how I have to keep lowering the microphone making me, no matter who answers will ask the question last? Do you have an opinion, and Ms. Niland gets to answer this first. Do you have an opinion as to the media's coverage of this race?
The media is something you have to deal with as a public servant. We are public servants. You can talk about transparency all day long, but if you're not willing to share your past and what's happened to you in your past, well, then why are you in this business? You shouldn't be. And so the media is fair game. Your life, every decision you make every day, every decision I made when I was 20, any decision I made in my 30s, any decision I'm making in my 40s. I am a public servant, and it is the media's job to tell my story, whether I like it or don't, whether they want to spin it or they don't. But my job is, as a public servant, my life is open to you. So if you're not willing to take the rough strides in that, then you really shouldn't be in this job. Because you can talk transparency all day long, but transparency isn't just what you want the constituents to hear about. It's about who you really are.
When I decided to run for this race, I knew exactly what I was getting myself into. I knew my private life was going to be exposed to the public, and that's okay, because I can live with myself every single day, knowing that even though I've made some mistakes, I've continued to strive forward and work to become a better person day by day. Now, without a free press, there cannot be a free people. And with the press that we've had as of recent, it's been incredibly great having them to expose certain things. However, I believe they have been a little bit unfair on certain issues, specifically transparency and accountability. But however, certain people tend to lie about their dealings of how they've handled. And no, Ms. Niland, you did not sign the affidavit.
Once again, it's easy for him to say these things, but he doesn't have that proof, does he? No, he doesn't. Is he whining about the fact that his past has been exposed in the media? Yeah, he is. But if you think this is tough, you have no idea what you're getting into. Over the next 4 years, you will be subject to extreme public pressure. You will be criticized for every decision you make, whether it's a good one or a bad one. And you have to be able to take those punches. I'm resilient. I can take a punch, I can adapt, and I can thrive. I've done it, I'll continue to do it, and I'll continue to keep my life open to you as I've done. It's very easy to talk about transparency and accountability, and it's very easy to talk about all these political rhetoric that my opponent wanted to use. But I didn't hear one solution today. I didn't hear one idea of how we're going to grow that tax base, or which cost we would have cut, or which services he would have cut, or which park he would have closed, or what mass transit he wouldn't have invested in. I didn't hear any of those things today. I just heard great political rhetoric trying to make promises to you that he can't keep. And I know it because I'm doing the job.
All right, next question. Mr. Dagda gets the first opportunity to answer this. What is your opinion on the status of the proposed cultural center, which was passed by voters in a quality of life bond issue and has been in the news of late? Mr. Dagda?
The people have voted for the quality of life projects, and one of them being the cultural center. I believe that the city should appoint a commissioner and should allow for the commission to make the decisions for themselves. Since the people wanted this, we should fulfill it in full.
The quality of life bond initiatives are a promise to you, the voter. You stood up and said, we need to improve our quality of life. You said we need to invest in our community to the tune of $475 million. You said that if we invest in ourselves, then others will do the same. And it's working. We're seeing that. We're seeing additional investment, $248 million worth of new investment in this community from the private sector. That's additional revenue that will be coming into the city to help offset some of these costs. The Hispanic Cultural Center was voted on by you, the voters. Now we have to deliver. We have seen great public citizens willing to sacrifice their time to engage in this process. It's no different than what we did with the pool. When you stand up and say, we expect better, we deserve better, we want better, okay? We say, let's work together. So we did the same thing with the individuals with the pool, and we're doing the same thing with the Hispanic Cultural Center. We all got together and said, all right, we need to appoint a commission. These individuals that are willing to raise additional funds in the private sector to offset some costs, we need to put that group together and work with them to find additional ways to add monies to this project so that this project will be the state-of-the-art Hispanic Cultural Center that anyone has ever seen. 80% of our population is Hispanic. Austin has a Mexican-American Cultural Center. Albuquerque has a state-of-the-art Mexican-American Cultural Center. It is absolutely right to do what's in our heritage for this community. We have a history museum, and it's wonderful, but this is different. This is the Hispanic Cultural Center that you, the voters, voted on, and now we need to sit down with you, the citizens, and work it out, which is what we're doing. We've passed a group, we've all appointed that group, and they've actually already had their first meeting. So we're working together, and we'll deliver it like you want us to, and it'll be better than what we even started out with, especially if I'm at the table.
You already went.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry, I got lost. Okay, so, that's right, he did. I'm sorry, I'm not. Okay, I will claim jet lag. I just flew across country yesterday, I'm sorry. Okay, so, who gets next question first? Okay, very good. That's what I thought. That's what I've got written down. Okay, the West El Paso Republican Women had City Manager Tommy Gonzalez as our guest speaker last month. Please give us your opinion as to his tenure thus far.
I think we are so fortunate to have City Manager Tommy Gonzalez. When his resume came across the table, we got aggressive. We were so fortunate that someone of his caliber and quality and experience was willing to relocate to El Paso to help us make El Paso better. He is a black belt in Lean Six Sigma. And what does that mean to you? Well, it's easy to say that you're going to cut taxes, but when you're in that budget on a daily basis and you realize we're down to the bare bones, and we are, if we cut any more, we're going to be cutting services for police and fire, and we're going to be cutting your park hours, and we're going to be cutting things that we've heard you stand up and say you don't want to do, then we need to bring a fresh set of eyes in, like Mr. Gonzalez, who is operations. City Council sets policy. Mr. Gonzalez and the city manager form of government is operations and execution. So therefore, bringing someone like Mr. Gonzalez in and hiring him and allowing him to reevaluate how we're operating as a city from an efficiency standpoint has yielded dividends already. And so we're seeing ways to do things differently. We're seeing ways to cross, he calls it cross multiplication, as far as bringing the engineers, bringing the streets department, bringing the parks department, all to the table at once, and sharing services to better serve you. So do I think that we're going to be able to continue to provide better services at a lower cost under his leadership? I absolutely do, and that's why I voted for him wholeheartedly, and I think he's a great asset to our community.
I believe our city manager, Tommy Gonzalez, is doing a fantastic job, especially since after having to pick up the pieces from Joyce Wilson left.
That's right, that's right.
Now, I believe that the city manager can do a much better job and can continue on doing a great job. I commend him for having to come from his home from Houston over here to El Paso to bring forth a great city manager. And she mentioned having to cut, or not having to cut any taxes whatsoever, so you can get better services. What she didn't say is that she will cut wasteful spending. She doesn't want to lower your taxes. We can see it just from her saying those specific words. I believe we can work with City Council and City Manager together to continue on with the progress of El Paso, and we can continue on without having to break the budget of our taxpayers.
Next question, Mr. Dagda gets to answer first. What single issue is or will be your first priority?
Well, as I said it before and I said it again, my first priority will be having to bring forth transparency and to fight to keep the city accountable to its constituents. And also, I want to provide quality of life for citizens without having to take money out of their pockets. I also want to market our city with having to provide for high quality, high paying jobs for our citizens because they deserve better. And most of all, I want to reduce taxes and lower excessive public spending overall. Thank you.
District 8 has seen more development in the last 3.5 years that I've been in office than it has in decades. I want to continue that sort of growth. We've seen economic development be my top priority since I took office because that's my background and that's what I bring to the table. But as I said again, looking forward over these next couple of years, you authorize us to spend $475 million. That means our debt service ratio is going to go up. And Mr. Dagda telling you today that he can stop that from happening shows his lack of financial experience. You can't. You just can't do that. What we need to do is figure out strategic ways to issue that debt. My background as a financial advisor helps me do that. The interest rate environment right now is the cheapest it's ever been. We are at the table right now working with strategic financial advisors from all over this nation, trying to figure out creative financial ways to bring these projects forward without putting the burden solely on you, although you authorized us to do so. And it's that sort of experience that I bring to the table. And we're doing it. We're at the state legislation right now. I was there 2 weeks ago fighting for state incentives and millions of dollars that we can get to offset some of these projects, but we've never had the leadership to pass that sort of legislation to qualify for those state incentives. So that is what I bring to the table. That's how I'll continue to serve you, and that's why I need your support in this election.
Ms. Niland, please leave your financial advisor card at the door because you have allowed for the budgets to increase from 50%, 60%, and 40%.
That's not true.
Okay, $50 million, not a single cent more. Who remembers that? Because I certainly do. We ended up raising the budget to $72 million. The pool, West Side Pool, it was going to be budgeted at $8 million. However, it raised to 13.5. Tell me that that's not 60%.
What Mr. Dagda just said was that the budget over the last few years increased 50%, 60%. It's gone from 67 cents to 70, so that's hardly 50%. In addition to that, the quality of life bond projects are projects and promises to you. The pool individuals came forward to us and said, we inadequately funded this budget. My job as one of your city representatives, this is a democratic process, is to weigh in on the process. When they came forward and they said they wanted more, and they said they deserved better, and there was an economic benefit to this community, we listened. We processed it, we worked together, we figured out a way to finance it, and then we said back to you, the voters, if this is what you want, that's why you elected me. I'm going to deliver on what you want me to do, and that's what I did. And as far as the $50 million budget, Mr. Dagda, to the baseball stadium, which is different from this $750 million budget that you have to deal with and manage on a daily basis, is the fact that we went and got on the ground. And I went to the ownership group and said, you're going to increase the rent from what you had originally proposed. You're going to give an incremental every single year increase in the parking fees. You're going to do additional fundings when it comes to your share and proportion of parking. And then in addition to that, anything over this additional cost, you're paid for. And that ownership group stood up and wrote an additional $12 million check to this city. They didn't get reimbursed for that. That's a city-owned asset. That's called having the wherewithal to negotiate and sit down and demand more when you deserve it. So yes, Mr. Dagda, did I say we're not going to spend any more money? Yeah, I did. And did I hold the line on that? You bet I did. And did I fight and negotiate for more because I knew you deserved it? You bet I did. And is it working? Are we seeing additional investment in downtown and growing our tax base? You bet it is. What solutions do you have?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 more questions and closing statements. I know people are starting to get a little restless, but if we could please remain silent for our candidates out of respect for them. Ms. Niland, you get the next question. If you could change one thing about the mechanics of city government, other than taxes, what would it be and why?
I'm sorry, will you repeat the question? Sure. If you could change one thing about the mechanics of city government other than taxes, what would it be and why?
Definitely the bureaucratic process. When I see a problem, I'm one of those girls that says, well, let's get it, let's get it done, let's fix it. Wait, here's the way I see we can fix it, let's just fix it. And it just doesn't work that way in government. It just doesn't. You know, the idea for the community garden was an idea that spurred in my first year in office. We've had to wait 3.5 years to see that come to fruition because of processes and the fact that we didn't want to put it on your backs. We knew it was a blighted property that we owned, but we had to go off for a federal grant to get the funding to do something like that. And so the process sometimes really gets to me, and I don't like it. I wish we could just do things overnight. When we brought Whole Foods here to town, which are coming here on the west side, the grocery store that people have been wanting for decades, is now coming here and will be located on Mesa. They needed a median cut to be able to operate, and they weren't going to come unless we were willing to do that. That's engaging with the Texas Department of Transportation. I say, well, give them the median cut. We want Whole Foods. It's just a median cut. I mean, I'll get out there with my husband and we'll break the difference in the median right now. I mean, Whole Foods, you bet. Come on. But at the end of the day, it doesn't work like that. You got to go sit down, and luckily for me, I am really good at managing relationships. I get out there, I introduce myself, and I try to bring the right people to the right table. So do I have relationships with the Texas Department of Transportation? And was I able to get on the phone and get that median cut? You bet I was. Now, did I wish it didn't take so long to make those things happen? Yes, I do. And is it frustrating? Yes, it is. But I do see it improving, and we're working on it. But that's one thing that I'd like to change.
Well, the thing that I would like to change within government is to streamline the information services that we are providing. I want for people to know exactly how we're spending your money and why more than anything. This is something that we lack in current city, in our city. I would like to stop the excessive public spending, but I also want for people to know how that money is being spent. We shouldn't have our representatives, like my opponent, having to tax their constituents based on city council's mistakes. And the answer to that is allowing and letting people know how they're using the tax money. Honestly and transparently.
Thank you. This is the last question for our candidates, and then they will be giving their closing statement. The last question, and Mr. Dagda gets to answer this first. Candidates, in recent weeks, you have participated in various forums and debates with each other, and have had the opportunity to learn of each other's positions on various topics. At this time, I invite you to each ask your opponent one question. Mr. Dagda.
Well, I believe this will be our first debate and forum more than anything. So thank you very much for putting this together. You guys have been fantastic. And my question to you, Ms. Niland, is specifically, why are you bidding, or more like, why don't you want to serve your full term as your city representative and bid for mayor this next election season?
Mr. Dagda, I don't know where you got that information, but this election is about the city representative for District 8, and that's what I'm running for. That's what I've done for 4 years. That's what I'll continue to do. And I'll tell you what, it's the greatest pride and honor that you chose me to do that. There's not a day that I don't wake up that I don't feel honored to be able to do it. And I love it, and I'll continue to do it. But I don't know where you got your information, but sadly, sir, you're mistaken.
Ms. Niland, now you can ask Mr. Dagda questions. One question.
Mr. Dagda, I saw that you were questioned about what criticism you have of my leadership and my service to this community, but you couldn't articulate it. And so obviously, if you're running against me, you have a criticism of my leadership. So what is it?
I would love to answer that. And it's lack of execution. And it's allowing for, more than anything, for the budget to increase exponentially and just keep on putting the tax burden on the taxpayer.
As we said, Mr. Dagda, once again, you have little to no proof because that's just not the truth. And you know it's not the truth. The tax rate, like we said last year, was the effective rate, which is the same rate that it was the year before. And so if you want to curb taxes, you might want to consider running for a different form of government. And what I will tell you is I will continue to fight on your behalf. I will continue to look for creative solutions and financing. I will continue to fight at the state level to make sure that we are getting incentives that we've never had before to help offset these costs. I'll make sure, as we need to make the investments of $750 million that you've authorized between the street CIP program and the quality of life bonds, that we make sure we're issuing that debt in the lowest interest rate environment, which is what we have right now. I'll make sure that we find tools to help offset those costs. That's what I've done. That's what I've continued to do. I've heard you spoke about excessive spending, but I haven't heard any real data. What would you have cut? What would you have taken out? What excessive spending are you talking about? The criticisms that I've heard you say are things that you, the voters, approve. So therefore, I have strong, dedicated, proven results. I fight for our neighborhoods, I fight for our economy, and I fight for you. I love doing this job, and we have had a historic precedent over the last 4 years, and with your continued support, we continue to do that. So I ask you on May 9th to vote for Cortney Niland.
Okay, our question and answer period is over now. I want to give each candidate 2 minutes for their closing statement. And Ms. Niland, I believe you're first.
The issues that are important to me are public safety. If you're not secure in your home, and we're not still one of the safest cities in the nation, we're doing something wrong. The fact that we've been recognized for the last 4 years running as the safest city in this community proves that we're on the right track. Quality of life and economic development are essential in the job equation. We had Fortune 500 companies leave this community because they didn't like the quality of life. We have to invest in ourselves to actually be the community that we need to be. We're the 6th largest city in the state of Texas, and we're the 19th largest in the nation. We deserve the best. We have had great strides over the last 4 years. I spoke to you about some of the accolades the city's received. We're growing that tax base. Unemployment rate is down. Jobs have actually been created. But it is you and working with you on a daily basis that will help continue and foster this growth. I vowed to be a catalyst for change. I vowed to leave this district better than where it is today. I've done it. I've delivered. I want to keep doing it because, once I said before, I'm passionate about public service. And I know if you choose to elect me on May 9th, we can stand here and look in the future and know we're going to continue to make this sort of great progress that we've made in the last 4 years. But I can only do it with your support. And so thank you for being here today. Thank you for being engaged in your government. Thank you for your willingness to support me in the past. And thank you for your willingness to support me in the future. It's a great day in El Paso, and I'm so excited about what's on the horizon.
When I'm elected City Representative, my promise to you is to bring forth transparency and keep the city accountable to its constituents. I vow to vote against any public spending. I vow to reduce your taxes. Homeowners shouldn't have to decide whether to lose their home or putting food on the table. We happen to have one of the highest foreclosure rates in the state of Texas, and that should end. My promise to you is to market El Paso as a city that can provide skilled people and entrepreneurial people so we can meet the demands that companies want, so we can open up our doors and employ our residents with jobs that they deserve. And I want quality of life for our residents. I'm sure you want quality of life as well. But I'm sure you don't want a quality of life in which you end up losing your home. Vote for me, and I will guarantee that I will keep my promises and I will not break them. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our debate forum for City